Welcome to Married AF. We are your hosts, Brooke and Randall Fowler. On this show, we discuss the topics that really matter.
Like big veiny cocks and our favorite TV shows.
So pull up a chair at our kitchen table and hang out.
While I bulldog my nuts. Yeah, speaking of big veiny cocks, I've got to be honest. I'm concerned about the... Have you seen the koozie that I put out on We Have Merch, or that they put out for us? By the way, Rachel Miller, of course, is joining us, our in-house therapist and all-around greatness champion, is here with us again, finally.
Hello. It's been so long.
But have you seen that on Twitter that I just put out for the contest for tonight's episode, Rachel?
I did. I saw that. You're giving prizes away for people who are paying attention.
Did you notice the little bitty wiener at the bottom of the koozie?
I did. Now I have to go look. How did I miss that?
I missed it the first time,
It's
too.
intentional, but I'm starting to regret it. I might have to go back to the one without the tiny little photoshopped wiener into it.
I mean, you always have to take it that one step further.
I always regret when I add a wiener into a picture, even though it's hilarious.
Now. You pointed it out. There it is. Yes.
I know.
Now I see it. I don't know if I would have realized that's what that was if you hadn't told me. I think I just thought it was a blob of color.
Well, that's what I had hoped until people bought it and got it home and threw it on a beer and then was like, good Lord. That's a wiener. Goodness gracious. But I don't know. But that was weighing on me.
It's already out there now. You already did it.
Well,
so now you have to live with your decision, Randall.
Yeah, sometimes you got to live with the repercussions.
Well, and if people are trying to win it, I mean, they looked at it, right? So...
I don't think many people will notice it.
Yeah, I mean, you texted it to me and were like, did you see the wiener? And at first, I didn't, I looked at, I thought you had made one of, Elmo's arms look like a wiener.
You knew to look for a wiener, though. Somewhere in there. You were like, there's a wiener somewhere.
No, you told me.
Oh, okay.
You said, did you see the wiener? Oh. And I was like...
That's right.
Oh, let me look again. No, typically I do, but it really did blend in at first, and then you look at it, and then of course my next question was, that better not be a picture of your actual wiener.
Never.
That was probably a really good clarification to make.
Right? I know. I was like, hang on.
We're gonna do our traditional now shot, Rachel. If you do have a glass of your $70 a glass red, you can take a swig with us.
I do have my wine with me.
Yeah, bougie wine.
Like fancy pants, and I'm like, who said anything about wearing pants? Like, dude.
Oh, baby, you did it with
yes, I have a glass of wine.
Oh, God. The shot's so bad, Rachel, every time.
Why? Please explain to me the point of this. If it's that bad, change it up.
Well, we bought that huge bottle of the or I bought the huge bottle of terrible shit.
Don't wee me into it. Huge.
It sounded like it would be good, but we just got to get rid of it.
They didn't have like a Mad Dog 2020 size bottle of it or anything?
Nope. All right, well, first thing I want to dive into with you, Rachel, me and Brooke were talking, is want to get your quick thoughts on our podcast with the Priority Society, ISIS and Eros.
Good show. Good show.
Did you listen to their show?
I did listen to the show, and part of why is because in my world, consensual non-monogamy isn't talked about much, but because I spent 10 years doing sex education, sex toys, I even did another, what I guess you would now probably call a podcast prior to this, with someone I knew, and we were very sort of involved with the kink and the BDSM world and had lots of guests on. I've talked to so many people for whom this is a reality, but mainstream society is sort of way behind the eight ball on this. Lots of people are living the consensual non-monogamy life. Lots of them are. And there's their really large umbrella that they talked about. It's pretty big.
Yeah.
Pretty much anything that turns you on, there's probably a group of people who thinks like you.
Yeah.
Because we don't talk about it, everybody thinks they're weird. Like, the most common question I used to get is, so this is my fantasy, is it normal? And I'm like, look, if it turns you on and it turns your partner on and it's not illegal and like it's all consensual, it's fine.
And it doesn't involve murder, then you're probably
like,
okay.
It's not illegal. Just go for it. You know, like, so the way they talk about it, what I really, their willingness to talk about the screw ups and willingness to acknowledge that it's a lifestyle that takes a little bit of figuring out how to be involved with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But like them, the people I've spoken to are always so open and so willing to be like, what do you want to know? How can I, educate you? What information would be helpful? And so their willingness to put that out there and be like, look, we're relatively new in the game and these are the things we learned. And if we can help you, so much the better. And they're really the first, like the number one rule, it's consensual. All the way around, it's consensual. And how they stepped into that world and the level of trust that requires between them. I think Eros made the comment about like, this isn't something you do to like fix a troubled relationship.
Right.
Oh, sure.
It's something you do to enhance your already good relationship.
Right. Like you got to be on solid footing to go into that world.
Oh, God,
and
yes.
So, yeah, they speak about it so beautifully and they cover all of the really valid points that need to be covered. But I told them on Twitter, I said, look, if I've got couples who are having that conversation with me, and I'm wide open in therapy. Not all therapists are, and I get that. And like even in my Psychology Today profile, I'm really clear about the fact that I'm kink and poly aware. I'm LGBTQIA friendly. Like you can have those conversations in my office. But if that topic comes up, this is a great resource for me to send people to if they have questions.
Yeah.
It's a great place for people to be like, oh, that's how you can sort of start to have that conversation with your partner. It doesn't have to be, hey, let's go pick up another couple. Or, hey, let's go pick up a third party. Like, they talk about the way that they sort of went into that. And I don't think it's always how people think it is.
No.
It's definitely not how I thought it was.
No.
Yeah.
What made me really proud of the episode, actually, all of what you said, but I had a few friends that reached out to me that are like my buddies after that episode, and they were like, man, I just listened to the Swingers episode. I could never fucking do that, but God, that was an awesome show.
Yeah, I mean, and that's
fine. You know, that's fine if it's not for you. You know, that's the whole reason why we agree with what you said. What intrigued me about them when I listened to their show the first time was everyone should have a platform, I think. It doesn't, whether I agree with it or not. And thank goodness, because they're so nice. And if I were considering being a swinger, listening to Eros and Isis talk, geez, they're upstanding. They speak very well. They talk about how much they, screen their potential dates and
their whole process is really fascinating, and I think it allows people to understand that there's multiple ways to do this and that you can be as selective as you want to be.
Yeah.
Because I think some people are like, well, you just got to take what you can get, and but the thing about any type of consensual non-monogamy is that there's rules and there are boundaries, and you have to be in a respectful relationship, and you have to trust and respect the people that you're bringing into that relationship. And that takes time and intention, and that's the thing I love about them. They're so intentional. They know what they like, they know what works for them, they're blunt about it from the get-go, and they're not afraid to say, this doesn't work for me, I need to move on to the next thing. And so people listening to them can understand that that's okay. Like, that's perfectly acceptable and normal. Brooke, I was wondering, because I was listening to you, and I had a feeling a lot of this was very shocking. How was it for you? Like, I could tell you're like, wait, I didn't know that's how that worked. I didn't understand. Like,
it was. I mean, I never had. I guess I just had never really thought about it very much. And I was probably one of those ignorant people that just thought you just had, like, went to a party with a bunch of other couples and everybody banged each other. But I mean, it's fascinating to me. Never do I want to be a part of it. like, it's not something that I'm interested in doing, but I'm fascinated in learning about stuff like that. So I'm like, yeah, it was all, so much of it was brand new information to me.
Well, so here's the other fun part about it. When you listen in to people like them who are willing to help remove the stigma and shame by talking about it, dude, it's a total turn on for other people. Because sometimes just the voyeuristic piece of that is enough to, like, jumpstart couples' sex lives. Like,
yeah.
I mean...
And I mean, I loved listening to how much they love each other. And how much they're so cute, and like how much they just, everything that the other one does, even if it's involving somebody else, turns them on. So, I mean, in a sense, it did, like, not turn me on, but it was like, okay, let's wrap this up so me and Randall can go.
Well, no, I'll be honest about it. We're honest and upfront on this show. There's no lies. We bang like animals usually after every show, but after that one, and then after we finished, I was especially impressive that night. That's not always the case, but I was very impressive. And afterwards, Brooke's words to me was, "I could never ever watch you do that to someone else." So that proves your point right there.
Is important. Like, you have to be able to say, that doesn't work for me. But at the same time, what works in real life isn't always the same thing that works in your head.
Sure.
Like, we all sort of have fantasies about, like, if all the circumstances were perfect in the world, this is the fantasy I would have. This is the fantasy that I would only ever do in my head, because in real life, ew, no.
Well, sure, of course. Anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could
those
be...
are normal fantasies.
Yeah, but putting a face, or not a face, because they don't show their faces, of course, because
the stigma's a real thing.
But
they're not wrong about that.
They are very, other than that, as upfront, I think, as they can be.
Absolutely.
And that put a very real, something for me that was just different. I've never had a problem with it, as far as neither one of us have ever been judgmental of anybody with what they do in their sex life. We were just
ignorant about the...
But knowing that it was more than just a hookup thing, I think we both thought it was more of just like horny people that were maybe on the outskirts of their relationships trying to get some strange dick and puss with permission.
Right. And looking for a hall pass.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And that's a thing too.
Yes, it is. Like, that's the thing. Some relationships have, like, this is the other thing that I find always so fascinating about people's relationships, is we sort of assume, well, people don't really do this and people don't really do that. But the truth is people do almost everything.
Yeah.
True. That's true.
Do almost everything. But because we've created sort of such narrow definitions of what's allowed and narrow definitions of acceptability, that it puts a lot of people, it marginalizes a lot of people, and it requires people and activities and preferences and behaviors to go underground. And sometimes that's part of the portion of that. But the more we can talk about these things and the more we can put them out in the open, the more people understand that, oh, wait, I'm not alone in this.
Oh, sure. That's where I think the power of podcasts is huge, because it doesn't matter what your political, ridiculous thoughts are or anything in life. When you can actually sit down and just by yourself, put in your headphones and listen to a couple of respectable people talk about their choice of lifestyle, it makes it much harder to be a ignorant, stupid prick.
Yeah.
It kind of...
It's hard to hate people close up.
Exactly.
So, move in as often as you can. Mm-hmm. Listen to people who are doing things differently than you. Listen to people who think differently. Spend time with someone who looks different, believes differently, behaves differently. Because that's how you remove... That's how you stop being able to place them in the other category, which is what's so damaging.
I agree.
Yeah, and I was also glad to hear that the urban legend around here about the pineapple in the shopping cart was absolutely
I had no idea about that.
True. I was like, "Are you kidding me? Pineapples are so like." Oh.
That was fantastic.
I know. I was like, what?
Well, what was funny is that I have pineapple shirts and my wedding ring is black.
I know. Yeah.
You're going to be careful now where you wear that, aren't you?
That's
Yeah.
what. Well,
We're
I
not
mean,
going to that Publix over there by Bridge Mill.
Yeah, that's. Well, I wanted to go ahead and get us started with question one because it's a good one, and
Okay.
these are in order the way that
And
they
these
came.
these are parenting.
These are all
subject
parenting
related.
I
So
had
we're
to
jumping.
filter-
We're jumping.
So unlike our usual foray into whatever is hot and heavy in
Yes.
the world in the moment, we're going to stick to parenting.
We're going to
tonight.
stick to parenting tonight
We're
and
gonna
try
do
to
it. We're gonna do
try
it.
to help some people and change some lives.
Oh boy. Okay. Nothing like a little pressure. Rachel. Thanks.
All right, the first one is I spank my children when the situation calls for it. I know that in today's society that makes me a monster. Do you, Rachel, think I'm a monster?
Interesting question. I'm particularly intrigued by the way that it's worded.
I know.
Um,
Feel like
no,
they have a lot of guilt.
I don't think someone who's spanking. I think that they're doing what they learned,
Uh-huh.
and what many of us learned growing up was that spanking was A, acceptable, and B, effective.
Oh, I got the shit spanked out of me, buddy.
Yeah, you and me both.
My
But
parents said they did, but I don't remember it.
Oh, props. I'm impressed because I remember lots of mine. I
Yeah.
had a belt. My dad was really big on remember those like paddles with the little rubber ball on the
Yeah.
rubber strip?
God.
Oh, yeah.
Right. When those would break, he would keep them.
Jesus.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Randall's dad used a belt
Oh, yeah, I got the old
and a switch.
military
Wait,
belt. Well,
nanny.
my great grandmother used the switch on
That's
us.
right. Yeah. I didn't have any of those
That
experiences.
didn't branch on him, yeah. But look, I don't get to tell people what they do in their own homes. I will tell you that if you go to therapy, a therapist is going to have a conversation with you about why it's not appropriate to hit your children. And if it seems to be bordering on excessive use, they can call protective services on you. These are things you should know.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say that the research, and we're talking about 50 years of research, has proven that it's not effective.
Multiple generations worth of people that got their ass kicked are damaged.
And people will say to me, but I got spanked and I'm okay. Okay.
Are you?
You're okay. Well, there's a question. Are you? And could you be better if you hadn't been?
Mm-hmm.
And so where my issue around spanking really comes in is what we're teaching our children. Because most of the time when we spank children, we spank them when we're angry and frustrated and over the top.
Exactly.
So we're teaching kids, and this is what was taught to us, like that power over concept. I am bigger, I am stronger, I have more power over you because I am the adult. We don't always treat children like people. Very often we treat them like they are possessions. And so we have the right, quote unquote, to spank them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, am I going to sit here and say that I think every single parent who spanks their children has conscious thoughts about that and is consciously trying to hurt their children? No, I don't believe it. I believe almost all parents are doing the best they can with where they are and what they know in any given moment. But I do also say that if you know better, you should be doing better. And the research continues to come back with teaching children to hit. Like, you can't teach your kid, don't hit your sister.
And then spank the shit out of them when they,
Like, that, we give them these conflicting messages, and then we wonder why some kids think it's okay to bully. Well, the truth is a lot of parents bully. Like, that's what we do. We do this whole power over business. And particularly if we're talking about daughters, like, what is that mentality teaching? That whole power over, particularly if I'm thinking father-daughter conversations, what does that teach?
Well, here's what I know about that, and
your dad didn't spank your sister.
I think it's interesting. That's exactly where I was going to go with it. And I think and I don't know numbers or, Rachel's book smarts on all this, but from my little sample of life, I would venture to say a lot of dads that do the spanking would spank their boys much differently than they spank their girls, if they spank their girls at all.
I would not disagree with you on that. And I think that goes back to our conversation that we've had before about how we're raising boys.
Mm-hmm. Well, of course it does.
And I have really big concerns about what we're teaching boys when we're spanking them. That the goal is then to shame, humiliate, and dominate.
I was going to say you're dominate. Trying to dominate, because it's like you're trying to, like, your kids are supposed to have some like a healthy level of fear of they're not supposed to be scared of you.
No.
But
they're supposed to have like some. I don't want to disappoint my parents.
Yes, and I mean,
and you're their source of livelihood. You pay for their food and provide their home,
you keep them alive.
You don't not like you're going to take that away from them, but there should be a healthy respect of that portion. And I don't blame parents either.
But let me ask you something about that, Randall.
Yeah, I'm listening.
Are you the believer of respect is given from children, or do you believe you have to earn the respect from your?
I think it's both.
Yeah,
I think it's both. I think that some kid depends on the will of the child. If you break the child's will, if you beat them enough, or if you spank them enough, they will be forced into a respect that may not be healthy, but a fear.
You don't have to
just fear.
Yeah, and it may be an obedience better than respect.
Well, the way I see it is that I respect. I mean, like my experiences with Gunnar. And I show him respect as long as he's showing me respect. I mean, we don't.
We've never spanked.
I've never spanked him before, but I'm saying, like, as far as like punishment, like, we're taking all your shit. Like, you get no toys, no iPad, and
I've taken stuff away from my kids plenty.
Yeah, so like
there's not consequences. It's just that so often when we hit our children, we're teaching them the exact lessons that we're trying not to teach them. We tell them they can't hit their friends when they're angry. We tell them that they can't bully other kids. We tell them that there's a responsibility that comes with being the bigger kid or the older kid or any of those things. But then we as parents set this example when we spank our kids that no, because at the end of the day, what really matters is who's bigger and who's stronger and who has the power.
Well, for me, I think that the trap that it falls into, and I would say half of it is it's a punishment of convenience. It's quicker. It takes less work. They think they can be over and done with. It doesn't require you to really know your kids or talk with them or invest more time. You can be over and done in 2 minutes and go in there and tell the wifey poo, I did my job. Now throw me a brewski. And let her clean up the tears or the whatever. Yeah. But
and let's be real. Other punishments are very often greater punishments for parents than they are for children. Grounding your children for any length of time is as hard on you, if not harder.
No, trust me.
It's harder.
Taking the goddamn iPad away from our 4-year-old is on a week, and like over a weekend.
It ruins our week.
Well, yeah. I mean, like before we went on vacation, how long he lost?
He lost it for a couple weeks.
A couple weeks he had it gone. All his shit was out of his room. But it was every single day at school. He was trying so hard and like to earn some of his stuff back. He'd be like, can I have my Hulk hands back?
He did a great job though. He earned them back piece by piece.
Piece by piece he earned it
back.
And
it was impressive. I was proud of us for sticking to that.
Oh my God, yeah.
It's hard.
It is very hard.
And sometimes it blows up in your face. My son will love that I tell this story. So he was about 3 or 4 years old. Was total slob kid, would never want to pick up after himself. And finally I was so fed up. I'm like, your dad's going to lose his shit when he gets home. So anything that's not picked up by 4:30, I'm putting it in garbage bags and it's getting thrown away. And of course I'm super angry and I'm not very nice about it. I pack whatever's left at 4:30. I literally throw it all in trash bags. He thinks I've thrown it away. I'm too cheap. Too cheap. I couldn't actually throw the toys away, right? Like
I'm right there with you.
So I've spent too much money on this.
God, yes, I know.
I hate it, and for like the rest of the week, he'd actually kept his room clean. So at the end of the week, I'm like, you did such a really great job of keeping your room clean this week. I actually do have your toys from the other day that I will give back to you, but you need to put them away. Do you know what he said to me? I don't need them that badly.
You're like. Oh.
He'd already learned to live without them.
Yeah.
Oh,
I know.
So backfired.
You're like, well, that didn't work the way I wanted it to.
Well, you're going to take them anyway, and you're going to play with them.
And then you're going to make a mess and pick them up. Yeah.
I don't pretend that, like, that parenting is easy and that I don't understand why parents spank their kids.
Yeah.
And I won't lie. I won't sit here and lie to you and say I've never spanked my children. I have. But it's almost always when I'm angry. Or, when, like, if they've run out into the street or they've stuck, like they've gone to touch a flame.
Right.
And I'm terrified.
Oh, of course.
And my initial reaction is to, like, smack a hand or swat a butt.
Yeah.
I did it when they were. But it didn't actually work.
No, it doesn't.
No, I mean, I was spanked. It's funny because as a boy, you know, I can speak pretty good to it. It'll usually end when a boy is big enough where he doesn't cry anymore, or it did for me. And I remember, and my dad remembers, we've talked about it before, the last time that he spanked me. And I looked at him and I said, "Are you done?" And he told me flat out, "Well, I can't spank you anymore." Like, that was it. Because it wasn't doing.
How old my brother was, because it's not effective.
It wasn't doing the job that he had hoped anymore.
Right. Like, my brother used to get swatted all the time. I'm trying to remember how old he was when he stopped, but I remember. So I must have been 8 or 9 because he was probably 2 or 3, and my mom broke a wooden spoon across his ass.
Shit.
Like,
Jesus.
and he laughed at her.
Oh.
He laughed in her. I'm like, what do you even do after that?
I know.
Like,
Nothing. You're just like, well, all right.
I mean, he's lucky she didn't lose her fucking shit and, like, kick him across the room. I mean, if her temper was already that hot.
Yeah, but obviously he's big enough and strong enough at that point where it's
2 or
proof
3,
that she can't dominate him anymore.
At 2 or 3 years
my
old.
mother was like 2 or 3 years old and was kind of like F the world. Like, that's what he was. But even, like, my son, like, Mason said, I'm trying to remember, probably close to the same age, he had me in tears one day because he just was so argumentative.
Oh, Gunnar does that to me all the time, girl.
I said, like, I finally gave up and I went out in the garage and I sat down and I cried. And he maybe he was 3 and I might have been pregnant with his sister, so maybe that made it worse. But their dad comes home and he walks in the house and he looks at Mason. He's like, "What did you do to your mother?"
Yeah.
Like, I just couldn't deal with it. And so, like, do I acknowledge that most parents are really just doing the best they can with where they are and what they know? And I don't pretend the parenting gig is easy, and I don't pretend to have all the answers. Like, I have lots of resources. I can do lots of things to help. The therapy room can actually be a really helpful place to learn some new skills and to diffuse some of the real and genuine frustration that comes with parenting and the not knowing. So, look, I don't pretend that anybody should, like, no, don't go to therapy until your kid's a teenager. Like, look, if you're struggling, go earlier than that. Go as a couple to make sure that, like, you're on the same page parenting-wise. But I don't believe that parents who spank their kids are monsters. I think it's just we do what we know very often.
No, I'm glad that you said that they're not monsters, because I think the majority of them are not. And
Yeah.
And so I was hopeful that you would say that.
Abuse is a problem. Like, look, there's a line. There's a line about abuse. And remember, for Child Protective Services, or whatever they call it in your area, like, the line is you may not hit your children.
Right.
So understand that, like, you got to be careful with that stuff. And you're going to need to try to find some way, like, look, find a parenting class. There's lots of them around, to find different ways to discipline your kid, because you don't ever want to be in that situation.
No.
Like, that's an awful situation to be in when, really good, loving parents get called because they spank their kids in public, or, somebody decided they needed to call on them. So just, like, that's the other thing. Like, just be careful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've got a question about that, so I don't want to dive into that too far. It's a great question. Yeah, it's toward the end.
Oh, okay.
Perfect segue, but I want to save it so we stay in order.
All right. Well, we can go to...
Perfect.
Right. This one, you intentionally gave this one to me.
No, I didn't. I just split them.
Okay. Well, this one is something...
What is it?
It's women that do not breastfeed are intentionally harming their children, in my opinion. Do you agree? And I did not breastfeed Gunner, so that's why I thought he intentionally gave it to
I
me.
did not,
because he knows it's I'm very sensitive about that because
there are mean-ass women that say
look at my child. He's fine.
So Brooke, like, let's really talk about this because what comes up for you? Like this massive amount of shaming we do of other mothers who do things different from us. It's awful.
It gets under my skin so fucking bad. Like, because I've got two for me for C-section and breastfeeding.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I mean, some women will say that because I had a C-section, I didn't really experience childbirth. And
she'll rip their throats out and shit down their necks.
Exactly.
If they say that to her in person, that person would be,
Don't you fucking dare tell me I didn't experience childbirth because that was my experience.
Yeah, it's just different than
It was just different than yours. Even if it's somebody else that had it vaginally, like that's not the same experience you had it. Everybody's is different.
And look, I could claim, I'm sorry, I did it with no drugs. So that woman who had an epidural is not as tough as I am.
That's the other one. That's another one.
We've heard that one before.
I would never go there because I will go right back to the thing that I say. Parents, particularly mothers, are all doing the best they can with where they are and what they know and what's going on for them. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to be really blunt about my issues with breastfeeding. Mm-hmm. I didn't breastfeed either. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't do it ever. But that's because I come from a history of sexual abuse. I have lots of sexual stuff attached to my breasts. I could not get past that. Mm-hmm. So if someone would like to call that, because as you can hear, like you, Brooke, I get a little
I can feel it. I can feel the tension. Right
I like it.
I don't think it's bad that you didn't breastfeed, so don't kill me.
Of course you don't.
I know. I'm just making sure Rachel knows because I can feel the heat.
No, Randall fully supported it.
Right. And I also understand that we do as a society, we've gone through this. If you look at the history of breastfeeding, so what's really interesting in my particular family is my grandmother didn't breastfeed her kids because that wasn't what was done at that time. And so my aunts and uncles were born in the late 50s, early 60s. Mm-hmm. And they were really pushing the formula bottle feeding then. When my mom and her sisters in the 70s and early 80s got pregnant and had kids, breastfeeding was coming back around to being all the rage. And my grandmother was super uncomfortable with it and would really give them crap about it. Well, then by the time me and my cousins were having kids, some of us were breastfeeding, some of us were not. Then my grandma was giving me crap because I wasn't breastfeeding. I was like, Grandma,
you didn't do it
I'm going back to work. When, like, Mason's 8 weeks old, I'm going back to work. I can't I work retail.
Right.
I can't plan the pumping situation. Like, this is not going to work. And that's on top of my own other issues that I have around that for myself, not for other people. Both my sisters breastfed. My mother did. Most of my aunts did. But, like, it's interesting how that's shifted over time. Like,
yeah.
And just to even watch my grandma flip-flop from her own experience to my mom and my aunt's experience to my experience. So, no, I think, look, are you entitled to believe that those women that all of us women who didn't breastfeed are intentionally harming their children? I can't change your mind about that.
No, but I think it's a fucking stupid-ass opinion.
Science works. I also think that it very much disregards the pain that a lot of women who can't breastfeed experience.
Well, that's where I was going to go with it.
Right.
I've known plenty of women in my life that the baby just wouldn't latch on, wasn't interested maybe.
My sister, one child did, and then the second one didn't. And
that's what it is. And then you can't also have to take into effect that with advances in science, the formula today is so robust.
Exactly.
And it's so good.
And they have different variations.
And you can control the amount of food they're getting. Scientifically, it's proven. You can control their actual measurements and everything more.
Because you don't know how much they're getting when they're
if you're not pumping,
your boob.
If you're actually letting them, whatever it's called, suckle or on the teat. But there's a lot of different, you can.
There's lots of,
You can debate on both sides. But my point is I don't think there's a deficit as much anymore in the essential vitamins part as maybe there was way back in the day.
Even like the colostrum, like that's where I like, I struggled in my head because it wasn't even like I didn't have like sexual abuse. However, it's still, I have a lot of like sexual that with my boobs. That's what that's what they're for my whole life.
I'm on the same page with you around that. Where I'm like, see, no, I like boobs around sex. I don't want those attached to feeding my children.
I don't want to associate it with having it in my baby's mouth. And then also it just, I'm really sensitive there. That area is super hypersensitive. And and I'm also like, I was very, I don't know. I'd seen friends.
Super blunt. Can you orgasm from nipple stimulation?
No, but it's
okay.
It helps.
Because that's another thing too, by the way. If you're someone who can,
if that's a thing, holy shit, do not breastfeed your children.
Well, for some people it's fine, but lots of women experience orgasm from breastfeeding, but that was something I know that I'm that sensitive and I couldn't go there because of the attachment of all the other stuff that I had.
Yeah.
And look, I was judged severely for not breastfeeding my kids from my own family. Brooke, I so get where you are.
Well, and what's funny is that like I was, before I even had him, like when I was pregnant with him, I mean, I knew from the jump I wasn't going to breastfeed.
Same.
So I was like preemptively like defensive. And then but it turned out like, cause my sister told me like, this horror story. I mean, cause my two sisters, one of them, I think she knew on like her second or third kid that she wasn't going to be breastfeeding because it didn't work out or whatever, and had gotten like really a lot of shade from one of the nurses there that was like a total bitch. And like, so I was like preemptively like defensive before I even went to the hospital, everything. But like, so like everybody in my family is totally fine with it. They're like, cool, do what you want. It's your baby. And then, so I'm like, no, you're supposed to argue with me about this. And then like at the hospital, they were like, are you breastfeeding? I was like, no. And they were like, okay, cool. We're just going to mark on his little thing that he said. And I was like,
they were great.
I was like, okay. Like, I was like ready to like argue with somebody about it. And they were like, no, that's great. We'll just mark on here. And he was the only baby like in the nursery, by the way, that was sleeping because all the rest of them were crying because they were starving because they couldn't like.
Right. I know. I've seen, like, look, my kids slept through the night super early.
Yes,
and like all
exactly.
kinds of other things. Like I do get that. And I also know that there's these really great options now for women who either can't or are choosing not to. There are milk banks.
Yes.
Like if you are really dedicated to
the process of it,
you can go get it. I have a friend who was a prolific like producer, and so she, I think even for quite a while after
she a milk nurse
and stopped nursing, she kept pumping and kept giving milk to the milk bank because she's like, look, it's really important for the women who can't and the women who feel really badly that they're not able to. And if this is something you really want to do and I can contribute to that, then I'm going to do that. So,
wow.
Like, it's amazing. Like, I have a friend who really struggled and was devastated initially that she couldn't breastfeed.
Yeah.
So my thing is, we as moms are, like, we're divided in the world around enough issues. The fewer of those we can focus on, the better.
Yeah.
And the more supportive we can be of each other and our own and each other's experiences of motherhood, because they're all different and we all come with different stuff to the table. And children are the primary trigger of all your childhood stuff. So, like, we're all going through a tough time. We're all just really trying to get through the day. And so the more we can be supportive of each other around where we are and what we're trying to do. And yeah, you're allowed to have your own beliefs. I get that. I also would say be gentle with other people. You don't know where they are and you don't know how they've come to the decisions that they've come to. And you know, until you walk in somebody else's shoes, it's you just don't necessarily know. And so if you can go into those conversations and those things with a generous attitude, you know, about, well, help me understand why that's the decision you made, and be okay with the fact that somebody made a different decision than you. And remember, just because somebody's decision was different doesn't make it wrong. It might have been wrong for you, but maybe it wasn't wrong for them. And so I think it's just, you know, the more open we can be to other people's experiences, the less, I mean, being a mom is hard enough.
We have enough guilt being moms, especially like working moms. Good God.
Oh God, yes, absolutely.
Well, I want to chime in on one thing before I ask the next question, because I don't really have a whole lot to weigh in on that one.
How do you feel about being a mom, babe?
Except for this part, as the spouse or partner or significant other in that debacle, is you really learn how important and sad that mom to mom, women to women relationship can be. It can be one of the meanest I've ever seen of any division in this country. I think it can be the most brutal at times, but it can also be the most uplifting and change somebody's day. And I'll give an example. I remember Gunnar was really young, and I was either at work or on the road to get Griffin from Alabama. Mm-hmm. And Brooke had went to Walmart with Gunnar, and he was acting a fool.
Oh, God.
And this lady, Brooke was trying to check out.
He was like just shy of turning 2. I think he was a couple months before turning 2.
Other mother offered to hold Gunnar so Brooke could finish.
No, she checked out my grocery store.
Or so whatever.
It was like a self-checkout line because he was like, I was trying to push the cart and hold him because he wasn't having it being in the cart anymore. And then me holding him, still pitching a fit, but like a little bit less than being in the cart. So like I was trying to hold him and like check out my groceries. So this other lady that was waiting in line in another line, like stepped out of her line. She had somebody in her family with her and came out and like rang up my stuff for me. And she was like, I'm a mom too, girl. I understand. I was like, thank you so much.
Yeah. And and the reason that sticks with me is I remember her posting it on Facebook.
Yeah.
And I remember reading it and I was like, see, that's where that relationship between mothers can be so powerful, and it can be so fucking mean. It blows me away when women are like, oh, you didn't do it. You know, it can be the most comfortable conversation. 2 women that have given birth are talking, and they realize one of them, the woman that gave birth vaginally will be like, girl, how long were you in labor? And, Brooke will be like, well, they had to emergency cut Gunnar out of me because my blood pressure was about to stroke me out and his heart rate was dropping. Mm-hmm. And I had to make the call. They came to me, the doctor, and said, I think we should take him. This is what's happening. And I said, go get him.
Right. And
without a doubt. I knew I'm not, save them both.
But yet I'll still get shit for not fighting it more. And that was evident in the doctor's face when she came in to say that we needed a C-section. There was like 3.
There was a woman. And she said, we need to, Mr. Fowler, I think if you're asking my opinion, we need to go in now and get him out.
They were ready for an argument from me and from you. And we were like, cool, let's do it. They're like, hang on.
They're like, oh wait, we don't have to fight you on this?
They're like, you don't object? We're like, no, that's the biggest piece of advice I give to anybody that's pregnant with their first baby is don't go into the delivery room with an expectation of one or the other.
Right.
Like you got to be open.
Or just have a healthy baby.
You got to be open to it's what's going to happen. What's going to happen. Your end goal is to get you and the baby out of there alive and well.
Healthy.
And don't have it.
Don't have that like be attached to your birth plan.
Yes.
Kind of thing.
Yes.
We all have these massive shame triggers around motherhood. And so often, like, we project our own stuff onto other people. The things we're insecure about, we get super judgy about and back and forth. And I think that, like, the truth is we're so busy policing each other around these things that we're missing opportunities to have really great relationships with other moms who can join the struggle. Yeah. If I see a 2-year-old pitching a fit in the store, I look at that mom and I'm like, I promise it gets better.
I know, me too.
Absolutely.
I'm like, bless your heart. Because they always look so ashamed, like, trying to make him be quiet. I'm like, sweetie, it's okay. It's fine. We've been there.
I look at him and I'm like, I'll even look at the little one and be like, are you having a bad day, kiddo? Like, because, look, that sucks. When your kid has a freaking meltdown in the Target aisle.
You're like, I'm just trying to get paper towels and, like, the rest of my shit that I need to get. Like,
well, what makes me want a damn snap necks is when grown-up adults are dicks to the 2-year-old kid. When they're like, oh, fuck, can't they shut up that crazy-ass baby? that's obviously shit itself up its back and
Or
probably
just-
has diaper rash out all over his nuts and up
or
his
is
legs.
just being a turd.
Or he's just being a shit.
But
yeah, it's cool, Mr. 50-year-old, to be pissed at that 1-year-old. Cool. Yeah.
Right.
yeah.
Or, just be as generous as you can be with other people and understand that their circumstances and their background and their context for life is different than yours. And so as generous as you can be around that, we should be.
Yeah.
So sure, you can believe wholeheartedly that breastfeeding is the best thing for your child. And you can live that value for yourself. What you can't do is shove that value necessarily on someone else and expect them to think about it the same way that you do. Not everybody does. Now, if we want to talk about child abuse, that's a different situation.
Yeah.
But we're talking about breastfeeding. Breastfeeding is not intentionally harming your child. You can get formula that is as close as science can possibly get. It's okay.
Well, and why would speaking for me personally, I love that baby so much. Why would I would never do anything to intentionally harm him. The fact that somebody would say that is so highly insulting.
Well, it just shows that they're an idiot to me.
Hurtful.
If they call
It's
that
very
abuse,
hurtful. Yeah,
their abuse of their definition of abuse is so skewed.
Right. They probably think that giving candy is
well,
abuse too.
And this leads in perfectly to our next question.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Okay.
It really does. It rolls right into it. Might as well be the same thing. Should I vaccinate my children?
Oh, God.
My gut tells me that vaccinations are a continual government experiment to control us.
Well, that's a conspiracy theory if I've ever.
There we go.
Yeah.
Dig into that one, Rachel.
So I'm gonna step out of my therapist hat here because this is not a therapist question.
Well,
this
just
is
be a
not-
person question.
Right. So here's okay. I'm going to tread very, very lightly here, and I'm going to go right back to what I said about these are choices that parents have to make, and I don't get to make choices for other people. And I am friends with doctors, and I am friends with nurses, and I have a lot of academic information available to me. In addition to that, I am also someone with an autoimmune disorder. So let's say, for example, we figured out that the vaccines I was given as a child, my immunity levels have dropped. I can't get revaccinated because my immune system is shut down right now. Mm-hmm. So what I count on personally is that everybody, the herd immunity conversation, I really count on other people being immunized because I can't be.
Right.
Well, yeah. And
exactly. I have a sister that has an autoimmune disease
I have
too.
a point to that exact statement because I want to see if I can actually say something smart before Rachel does.
Okay, I'm all ears.
I think Rachel is going to say this. Because you say it's a choice, you can't make that choice for other parents, right? That's what you said.
Yeah, but
and
your
I
kids
agree.
have to be vaccinated to go to
let
school.
me finish.
Okay.
Everyone let me finish. I'm not going to get many parts in this episode tonight
Sorry.
because
Okay.
dads are garbage.
Shut up.
I'm kidding. But no, but I know. But what I was going to say is you can't make the choice for them about their children. But in my opinion, when people don't vaccinate their kids, they're making the choice to put my kids in danger of an outbreak of something that we control. So it's not fair. I'm with Rachel. I can't make that choice for you. But you're choosing to make the choice for my kids by exposing them to possibly
polio
measles or mumps.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to throw something into this conversation that some people may not think it belongs, but I actually think it really, really belongs. I think if we're talking about the option to quote unquote not vaccinate your children,
absurd.
It comes from a massive, because what it means is you don't probably necessarily know anyone personally who's died of measles or mumps or had polio. You don't know women who had babies who were impacted because they got German measles while they were pregnant. This is the thing, because we've done such an incredible job through science in shutting down these illnesses, this generation has a privilege of not understanding how life-threatening they are. They sort of see them as this thing that doesn't happen.
Oh yeah, they've desensitized to this shit. They don't know.
And I might get serious backlash for this. I get it. I can take the backlash around it. There are lots of people who believe it's a government conspiracy. I'm not willing to risk my child's health for that.
Boom.
Me either.
Exactly. Me neither.
Personally, as a mother, I'm also not willing to put at risk children who cannot be vaccinated. I'm not willing to put those fragile, vulnerable babies at risk because I didn't, quote unquote, I was worried about a conspiracy.
Uh-huh.
The science has proven time and time again that vaccines do not cause autism. The guy who started
I was just about to say that. Like, what about the people that said
license because all of those studies were bullshit.
I thought it was Jenny McCarthy that started that whole
She was the
uproar.
voice behind it.
She sort of ran with it, and she, you know, and even like her son's diagnosis has actually changed over the years, I believe. So there's some stuff around that. That's why she's super quiet now.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she said he was cured all of a sudden at one point. And I just think from looking at it, because I remember I was very interested in it, it almost seemed like he was maybe on the spectrum, but the spectrum now with science has gotten so wide. You know,
well, the spectrum is interesting now because we've removed so the spectrum is a little bit back into my field. The spectrum is
welcome back.
Thanks. You know, this is not my parent hat. This is my therapist's hat, where what we used to diagnose as maybe Asperger's, which is sort of super high functioning. Some of those people don't get diagnosed until they're adults or even like early teenagers.
Like Sheldon Cooper on The Big Bang Theory.
Yes. So, or that person that you know is super socially awkward, but like super brilliant on the topic that they love.
Yeah.
Like,
of course.
And so those, like, now we put them just on the spectrum. Where we used to say those super high functioning people, you know, were individuals with Asperger's syndrome. So that stuff keeps changing all the time because I think we keep learning so much more about that. And look, at my very core, I believe in research and I believe in science. And the science has practically eradicated polio and had practically eradicated measles. And I'm not willing to ever risk going back there again.
No.
And so, like, the reason science treats us sort of like uses that herd immunity concept is because we're social animals. Like, that's what we are. We live in communities and we interact together, and our kids go to school and they're exposed to all kinds of crap. And if you're a parent of a very susceptible child, you have to hope to God that all the parents around you are vaccinating their kids or yours is put in serious danger. And for me, I believe we have obligations to our society and our community. And to me, that's one of them. And I get that a lot of people aren't going to agree with that, but that's where I stand. Like, I think we have an obligation to society because we live in a society.
Well, and I don't understand even the argument because I know like if you want your kid to go to school, which is the law, they have to be vaccinated. So
a lot of parents homeschool now.
There's lots of ways out of that.
Oh, they'll homeschool them and then make them even more.
There's homeschool, then there's also religious outs.
Oh.
And there are
like I understand if they have a disease or something where they can't take the vaccines, like that's I feel like of course acceptable, but then we need everybody else to be vaccinated.
Right. Look, it's a complicated conversation for a lot of people, and people are torn, particularly with vaccines that are new, like the new HPV vaccine is new, newer. And originally it was, no, we're only recommending it for girls. Now we're recommending it for boys. They weren't recommending it for Mason when he was in middle school. They recommended it for McLaren, but it was brand new, and I didn't really know anything about it. I didn't think it was a big deal. And now I'm going, oh, I think we need to get this for you now that I'm looking at what this is. I didn't know anything about it when you were, 14. So, like, as those new ones come along, I get it. You have questions and you want to investigate it. But remember, not everything you read on the internet is true.
No.
Well, what's your
all right,
you got the next one, right?
I do have the next one. All right, I All right, this is switching gears a little bit. My partner gets very upset with me because I've let our child sleep with us for the last 3 years. I think he's being mean. What do you think?
I don't think he's being mean. That's me personally.
I think he's about ready to file for divorce.
I'm adamant about co-sleeping for me before you jump in as a therapist, Rachel. I think and this is one of those things where parents might get mad at me, the other people that don't believe in it. I think kids need their own bed, their own space. Both of our boys have slept in their own bed from day as soon as they could. And
Griffin was with...
Yeah, but slept in his own bed from the jump, and they both loved their rooms and their space. And they're not in our bed so we can have sex.
Well, yeah, we can further our relationship and make sure our bond stays strong because we don't have a child sleeping in between us.
Because I've seen it hurt couples where it becomes an excuse from one of them to be an out of having sex. Go, Rachel.
So I have mixed feelings about this because, like you guys, I'm a very avid you're sleeping in your own bed thing. Mm-hmm. But that is partially because for myself, I'm a terrible parent. I'm
Brooke
a terrible parent. I'm a terrible spouse when I am tired. Mm-hmm. Anyone who knows me will be like, they'll look at me like, you didn't sleep well last night, did you? Because I'm not a nice person.
I'm a raging bitch if I don't have enough sleep.
Yeah, y'all are the same.
Yeah.
I can survive. Brooke is the worst.
Tom can too. He can go we'll drive 12 hours out to New York. He'll sleep for 45 minutes in the car on at a rest area on the way there, and he's fine. He'll do it overnight. I'm
I'll survive, but I'll make everybody's life miserable.
Right. I'm a disaster, and I'm mean, and it's just not good for anyone.
Yes.
So personally, I knew that co-sleeping would not benefit anyone. But I know people who've done co-sleeping who've done it really well.
Yeah, I do too, actually.
Have lots of great success with it. But I also know that co-sleeping is something that's a decision you need to make as a couple. Mm-hmm. And it is something that I'll see in sessions where people will be like, this is causing a problem in our relationship. And so then we have to talk about it differently.
Yeah.
Because you have to really make.
Well, my best friend did it for years. I mean, they just got their 2 youngest out of their bed recently. And she was, because I would ask her straight up, because she's my best friend, I'd be like, when do y'all have sex? Because y'all have 2 kids.
And
now
she was honest.
And she's like, we just have to get creative.
And
let's be real. Historically, people used to live in one-room houses.
And that's what I was going to say too. Yeah,
people in their bed, with kids in their beds all the time, because it wasn't like they only had 1 or 2 kids. That's when farm families had 12.
Right.
Let's not pretend.
How did you keep making kids with all the kids in the bed with you?
But they did. And
they figured it out.
And kids will not be permanently warped if they figure. Look, every kid has walked in on their parents having sex at one point or another.
Shit, my parents locked their bedroom door. I had to sleep in the bed with my sister if I got scared at night.
Her parents are rascals, though. They'd
be like, we
sleep
naked.
A sexual appetite that only.
You can also put the kids to bed and go have sex in the living room. You have options.
Well, I think that she was like, they go to bed before we do, so.
there's ways to work around that. But I also think that this is something where couples have to discuss their values, and they have to figure out what they value and how they can come to a compromise around that, because this could cause serious disruption.
No, I agree. It could be, people think it's a small thing. That, when me and Brooke discussed it, because I'm so adamant against it, for me, not for, I don't judge anyone else. Yeah. But I know. You gotta let me finish, because I wasn't going to throw you under the bus.
I didn't argue.
What I was going to say is, we had this real discussion where I remember saying to you, this kid's not going to come in here and sleep with us every night, and we're going to have to shut him down from time to time. Well, and you were on board with me, and that's great. If parents don't have that discussion in advance, it's a recipe for an unnecessary disaster.
Yeah. Well, and I would
also say that you have to have that has to be an ongoing conversation, because what seemed like a good idea in the beginning, at year 3, might not feel so good.
Yeah. Oh, trust me. Sometimes, I mean,
when the kid is old enough to say, "Ma, go grab me a snack. That's
Or-
for damn ridiculous.
Or like Gunnar does now, because Gunnar tries it more and more now, where he's just, and he's so fucking cute
and he gets
precious.
the boot.
And he comes in there and says, "Mommy, but I just want to relax with you guys."
Oh.
He's the cutest thing ever.
He's
And
super cute, but it gots to go.
I know, but that's why I'm glad I have you there, backing me up.
I
when
think
I'm,
he's super cute too, and all that, and I'll relax with him after we're up, and all that
I
good stuff.
know.
But that's so rare in comparison. He loves his bed, which
he every night, baby. He tries to,
kids can be, they need to know that they have their space.
Yeah.
In my opinion,
But he also every single night when I put him to bed tries to pull but I don't want to sleep alone. So I have to tell him every night, but you're a big boy. I tell him every night, you should cherish these nights you're in here you have your whole room to yourself with all your stuff. You're going to grow up and you're going to share a room with somebody one day probably. And you just need to cherish these moments where you have your own space and your own, and maybe you're going to have to share a room with a sibling one day. You don't know.
Think about this. I'm thinking about this sort of now in the moment. This goes sort of back to the mixed messages we give children, which is you have to sleep alone.
Yeah.
It is important for you to sleep alone. Well, your parents sleep together.
Uh-huh.
So I totally get it. If there are parents who be like, I don't think that's fair, and I think my kids should sleep with me. Okay, cool. That's your deal. I just know that I don't sleep well when children sleep in my bed, particularly my youngest. She's terrible. Even now, I can't stand if I end up having to sleep somewhere with
You're like,
her.
oh, damn it.
Oh, she's awful. She's the all arms out and legs out, and now she's bigger than me, so that makes it worse. But even when she was little, she was flailing all over the place.
I feel like all kids sleep like a tornado.
Right?
Oh, they
she
do.
Was a restless sleeper as a baby. I had to turn off the baby monitor because she would wake me up just from flailing around, and I thought she was awake and she wasn't. I'm like, forget it. The monitor's going. She had to cry loud enough for me to hear.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rachel. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. No, this is something that needs to be discussed as a couple, and the parents need to make these decisions together, and you need to be open to being able to alter that if and when it doesn't work. Is the short answer.
Yep.
To that.
All right. So this one is pretty deep. It's going to be. It sounds kind of funny, but I think it's important to discuss. I hate to admit it, but I have a favorite child. Does that make me a bad mom? So clearly she's got a personal favorite out of however many kids she has.
I only have one, so I don't know. But doesn't every parent? I feel like my parent's favorite is my sister, Susan.
Every parent I know, I think it changes. It can evolve to where, depending on where they're at in their life, they can be the favorite.
Well, I think as you guys were growing up, you both have siblings, right?
I've got two sisters. Yeah, I'm the baby.
Right.
And Randall's
I'm the middle.
You're the middle? Okay. So as you were growing up, did you assume your parents, you all knew who the favorite was?
Yeah, but honestly, I feel like my parents did a really good job, and I don't know. I feel like I'm always like, the best parents in the world. I feel like my parents did a really good job of making all of us feel like we were the favorite.
Oh, nice.
And because as far as I knew, I was the favorite growing up. And as an adult, I look and I'm like, oh, well, my sister, Susan, who's the middle child, she's essentially perfect. And she listens to this podcast. So I love you, Sus. But she never did anything wrong. She never got in trouble really. But me and my oldest sister kind of had we kind of pushed the boundaries a bit and caused them a little bit more trouble. So I feel like it naturally looking back, of course Susan's the favorite because she was less trouble and just, Yeah,
my brother would say that I was the favorite. And I think so would my sister probably. As far as
I thought you said Dee was the favorite.
Well, no, she's the girl, but I was the, I was the quarterback, the class president.
So you agree you're the favorite?
Blah, blah, blah. No, I never felt it.
He knows he's the favorite.
I think
I never felt it.
It's a middle child thing because Susan's the middle child
told to me. Chris has said that to me and you before. Mm-hmm. And that shit carries with them through adulthood because he said that to me recently. when we were talking to my brother one night.
And I feel like me and Beth say it to Susan.
You say it to Susan all the time. That shit carries with you for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
We do that too, where we so I have a younger brother and 2 younger sisters, and we all knew that. So my brother gets favorited around certain things because
he's the only boy.
He's the only boy.
Yeah.
And so he was really favorite for quite a while, but he was also so much trouble. So much trouble.
That was me.
Right. He was the trouble kid. My parents thought, as the oldest, they thought I was terrible, and then along came my brother, and they figured out what he really was.
Yeah, they thought Beth was a handful, and then they were like, Jesus Christ, why did we have another one 10 years after our other one?
Right? And then my middle sister was for a very long time, we all used to joke that she was the favorite because she was never in trouble. And now we all say it's the youngest, that my youngest sister is the favorite. So it's sort of adjusted partially through things we've done as adults and as we were growing up and where we are in our lives and how that, so I think it does. I think it shifts around what's happening. But I think when kids are littler, part of what that favoritism is about is sometimes it's really, really hard to be close to your kids who are just like you because they trip every trigger you've got.
Yes.
Oh, that's Brooke and her dad to a T.
Yes. Me and my dad butted heads so much when I was a preteen and teenager. I mean, we couldn't even talk to each other a lot of times, but it's because we're the same.
They're great now.
Yeah. I mean, and of course I always loved him but it was like we would just lose our temper so quickly with each other. And
some relationships are just harder than others with kids. So if you ask my children, they will tell you that McLaren, who's the youngest, she is the favorite. And I'm like, that's actually not true. I favorite you both in different ways for different things. Like if I'm going on a shopping trip,
that's more
and
accurate,
I want someone to hang out with in that way, I want Mason to come with me.
Oh, that's not what I was expecting.
Oh no, he's the greatest shopper. Love shopping with my kid. He's so great.
That's awesome.
He will dig through stuff. Mom, you should try this on. Mom, what are you looking for? And he'll pull things off the rack for me. He's
God, that's like Randall. Randall's actually a good shopper too. I'm terrible.
Not for myself. I'm a great wingman for her to shop for sure. I love to take her shopping.
A great shopper like that too, and you're not alone in that. But Mason's really good at that. But there are things that I do with McLaren and I share our love of animals, and so we have that. But McLaren is my mini me.
Mm-hmm.
When she was 2 or 3, one of my cousins looked at me. She's like, "What is it like to stare at yourself in the mirror every day?" We have the same facial expressions, the same mannerisms. We speak very similarly. And so sometimes she's really hard to be with. And sometimes she's my favorite person to be with. Mm-hmm. So it's just I think a lot of times we as parents have favorites around certain things. Sometimes we may favorite our children just because one seems easier to get along with than the other.
Right.
Sometimes it's easier to get along with the one who is just like you. I think my mom and my middle sister, my mom always thought her and my middle sister were very similar. And so I think my mom gravitated towards her. I'm in many ways more like my dad. And so I totally get why there were issues with me. But I think that, it can depend. And there are a lot of parents who will tell you they don't have favorites and might. And there are parents who really don't. I don't have a favorite. I have favorites for who I like to do things
certain
with.
activities and things. Yeah.
I love that answer. I have a favorite for what's convenient for me. That's how I feel about it too. Yeah. Absolutely. Right. I do everything else for your ass. When it's convenient for me, I'm going to pick my favorite for that thing.
Me and Gunnar have the exact same personality. We're just.
Oh, it's so hard.
It's so hard. Well, it's he's like a clone of Randall. But then his personality, all his facial expressions and his mannerisms and his personality and his temper is 100% me. So it's it's just, we're going to battle, I'm sure. But he's also my little munchkin.
Well, what's yours?
At the end of the day, we're all people, right?
Yes.
And so we tend to gravitate towards other people. You can be in at work, you gravitate towards, a certain person because there's something about your personalities that click. It doesn't mean you dislike all the other people in the office. It just means this person's personality clicks really well with yours.
Yeah.
And I think in a lot of ways it's just normal. But I also think when kids decide who the favorite is, Like, if they think they know who the favorite... There was a recent research article that I read that said most of the time the kids are actually wrong about that. So I was tempted after that to ask my parents, but then I'm like, I don't know that I really want to know the answer to that.
I bet that's right.
Yeah. Except for on the Goldbergs when she's got the giant picture of Adam.
Yeah, but as parents, if they could sneak behind that bedroom door and hear the parents really talking at night and being like, oh my God, Randall drives me nuts. He thinks he's all great because he's student body president.
Well, it depends on what night they say.
I know, but I'm saying that's where I agree with Rachel that I could see it being wrong, that they see one side because it's not until you become an adult, or for me, that I actually started seeing my parents as people.
Yes.
It was not until probably my 30s where I was actually like, you know what, they're humans.
Yeah, right. They're just people, just like me.
Up until then, they were like aliens to me. Like,
well, parents, like, their only identity is your parent.
Mm-hmm. Until you become an adult.
They're not a person with their own stuff, but you're my mom. Like, you're my dad. You're supposed to be these. And some kids have to figure that out a lot earlier than others, depending on the
Unfortunately, yeah.
But I also think that, like, is it the end of the world if you have a favorite kid? No, but I think you should be aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, you don't want to be putting cigarettes out on one kid and then taking the other one shopping every Thursday.
Yeah, that's a
bit
not extreme.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that if anybody's familiar with the 5 love languages, it's acts of service, quality time.
Yeah, we've talked about those.
Have you talked about those?
Yeah, in one of our first episodes, we did the test. Because I'm physical touch.
Oh, no shit.
Me love ski to fuck ski.
No way.
The information is just crazy. I never would have thought that. But the thing is our kids have that. Like, our kids have love languages too.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so when you can determine what your kids' love languages are, which there's a test for kids and teenagers too.
I need to go find the one for kids.
Go find that.
That'd be
There's
interesting.
a book. I'm not a huge fan of the book. Like, that's just me personally.
Yeah. I read the book too, or I listened to it years and years ago.
Because there's one for kids too. But what I would say is if you know you have a favorite kid, learning all your kids' love languages gives you a way to make sure your kids are all feeling loved, even if you do have a favorite.
Yeah.
Like, because if you've got a kid who's you're a quality time person and they're a quality time kid, well, you guys all hit it off great. But if you got another kid whose love language is acts of service, they're going to feel really left out if you're not the parent who ever like folds their laundry or makes them breakfast.
Yeah.
So, like, it's just knowing those things about your kid, you can balance some of that stuff out to make sure your kids know you love them. You just might have to show it a little differently. And it might be it might involve a little more effort.
Yeah. What do you got for the next one, babe?
All right. We are on number 6, by the way.
Go for it.
God.
I've already scratched one of mine that I'm moving on from for time, so we'll be fine.
No. My son is going to smoke and drink no matter what I say. Should I just accept it? He is 16. I mean, he is.
That's dicey.
Disagree. I don't disagree. Here's what I will tell you. Remember, those things are illegal.
Yeah.
And in many states, you are responsible for that.
Right.
So know the laws in your state, and you're not wrong. They're going to do it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a piece around acceptance of that and keeping your children's safety first and forefront so that they know, look, I'm not stupid. I know you're going to drink and smoke, and I know you're going to, you're probably going to smoke pot, and you might even pop a pill here and there. I don't approve of it. I think it's a really bad idea, and be really open and honest about having that conversation.
And teach them how to be careful.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and you can talk to them about what those things do to your developing brain. Like, 'cause they're detrimental to your brain as a growing kid. Your brain doesn't stop developing until you're 22.
I fucked my brain up then.
That's what I'm saying, right? Like, oh my God.
I could be so much smarter. Damn it.
Like, we can do a lot of damage to ourselves in that time period. And so being really open and honest with your kids about the reality of that, and at the same time saying to them, I understand you may end up in these situations, and I want you to know that you can call me and I will come get you. you can send me, like, you can, like, I know families who have, like, there's a certain text that gets sent.
Yes.
That's like, I'm in a situation where I'm not comfortable. Can you come get me? You know, I'm too drunk to drive. Like, and having a real conversation about what the ramifications for that are.
Yeah.
Like, you know, look, my kid did it. I went and got him. He doesn't remember any of it.
Props to him for actually reaching out to you, though, because honestly, like, I know a lot of parents that
he asked me if he could stay, and I said he couldn't. One of the people he was with called me later and said, Rachel, he can't drive home. And I'm like, that's fine. We'll come get him. He was grounded because he was told he couldn't stay, and he stayed anyway.
Uh-huh.
But I'm also like, I get it. Like, we've all done it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the key, and I got to give props to my parents in this regard. They did it, I think, perfectly. I don't remember my age. It was probably about 16, and my dad was pretty clear to me that I know you're going to drink beer.
Mm-hmm. Right.
If you want to drink beer, sit here and drink beer with me.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you beer right now, and you're not going to leave this house. You want to sit here and drink a beer? Let's do it. And that evolved to the point of, you know, and I never took him up on it. I didn't drink till I was damn near 30 for real. I drank a little bit in college, but their technique, it was never taboo to me enough to try to want to be all, you know, like a lot of kids I know did it because they weren't supposed to. Where I was like, shit, if I want to drink, my dad said I can chill at the house and drink all night. Yeah,
I had an aunt like that who was like, I would babysit. She'd be like, there's wine coolers in the fridge, Rachel. You're welcome to have a few. Like, so it wasn't, I never needed to go get drunk somewhere because I needed to know what that felt like because I could get it when and where I wanted to. And there's a lot of families who have rules around that. I would just remind people that it's still illegal.
Of course. Well, but it's better than your kid getting, you know, killed in a drunk driving accident.
Right. Well, what's weird about that is that my parents were always very cool about all that shit too. However,
you have a different story.
Yeah. I mean, like, it should be the same result, right? That, like, I was like, well, it's not taboo. No. My parents were always, like, very, like, just, you know, if you want to do something like that, you can have a drink with us, whatever. They even offered to have, like, if I wanted to have friends over, like, as long as it was okay with their parents, everybody's coming over and they're not leaving. Everybody takes their keys, that kind of thing. But everybody's parents had to agree and talk to them. They were willing to do something like that. We never did it, but I still went out and get fucked up behind their backs.
Well, she's got her father's tongue for liqueur and beer, though. That's another where you and your dad are the same. Yeah, you're just. You just enjoy drinks like your dad.
Well, and I think I just really, for some reason, there was something I didn't want to, like, and I ended up doing it badly, like, but I didn't want to, like, scar that image that my parents had of me or something.
Oh, okay.
And so you did it worse.
And so I went way above and beyond behind their back, ended up fucking all kind of shit up and getting in all kind of trouble.
She was a rascal, Rachel.
Yeah, I was real bad.
I've heard good stories. She was a rascal.
I was real bad. And my parents did everything they fucking could to try to prevent. I mean, they found out I was smoking, right, when I was like 13, 14.
And she doesn't smoke now.
No, I don't smoke now. And this is probably why. So, like, I was like, God, no, it was probably, I was 14 or 15. They found out I was smoking. So I got in trouble for it, whatever. Then my mom was like, all right, I know you're going to smoke regardless of what I say. So I'm just going to buy you cigarettes so you don't get in trouble trying to steal them since you're underage. Because that's basically what I got caught for, was trying to steal cigarettes. And she's like, I don't want you to try and steal cigarettes. You're going to do it behind my back anyways. I'm going to buy them for you. So, like, all my friends were like, what? Your mom's buying you cigarettes? My mom would literally, if she was at the grocery store and she'd like, one time she called me and I was at home and she's like, what do you smoke Marlboro Lights, honey? You want me to get you 2 packs? I'm like, yeah. So, like, for like 2-3 years, I quit smoking when I was 17. But like, so I quit smoking before I could even legally buy them. But like, my mom reverse psychologized me. So she thought, I mean, honestly, I really quit smoking because I didn't want to smoke anymore.
She didn't want it to make her look old either.
I looked at some of
reasons.
It was really the core of it was like I looked at some of my friends' parents that were like 50 years old, but they looked 70. And because they've been smoking for so long, I was like, oh, you're younger than my parents, but you look 10 years older. And it's because you smoke. So I quit smoking because of that. But I want to let my mom have that win that she reverse psychologized me.
So what do you think of that, Rachel? Was that smart or?
I mean, I have mixed feelings about it, and I also don't think there's a one size fits all, because I think to this conversation's point, what works on one kid doesn't work on the other.
Exactly,
so I think it comes down to the relationship you have with your child, what you know about what is your comfort level around things. Like, families have different rules about stuff. Like, I mean, so I know so for example, we traveled overseas, and, you know, when you go out of the country, the rules are different around alcohol. So yeah, my 16-year-old got into a bar because we were with.
Nice.
So like, and it's no big thing. Like nobody thinks anything about it. So like the rules are different everywhere. And so I think the more conversations you can have, the more open you can be, to figuring out what works for your family and your child. And look, there are kids that if you use that approach with, you're going to have an alcoholic on your hands by the time they're 18.
Right.
Like, and there's not a cookie cutter plan for what works and what doesn't work around alcohol. What does matter is the relationship you have with your ability to have open and honest conversations with them. Their beliefs around whether or not they feel like they can have these difficult conversations with you. So again, this is where a therapist can be a lot of help, because they can help sort of tease apart like the family rules and why they're in place and everyone's concerns, and how do we come to a place where like what seems like a good fit, or even just as a parent, if you're trying to negotiate this stuff with yourself or with your spouse, sometimes a therapist can be helpful.
I can't imagine that conversation my mom had with my dad.
Well, here's what I think, Rachel, and I'm interested to know your clinical thoughts on it, is because I feel like this is going to be poignant and elegant, like I always do on certain things. But I think as a kid, for me, I watched my dad had a definite alcohol problem, self-acknowledged. He's gotten help for it, you know, known issues. So my experience around alcohol was that I could see that it was a self-medicating type.
That probably played a role in why you did.
Of an issue. Gotcha. However, Brooke's parents, I don't see they were like social drinkers, like
they drank
unwinding, like having a glass of scotch at the end of the night.
Every
They're
day
very
they
elegant,
drank,
proper.
but it wasn't,
And, you know, my dad was like a beer pounder, a Crown and Seagram's pounder, type of thing.
To get hammered.
To get hammered and to get through his day. And I think that can lead to how your kids see alcohol. Is it, you know, you were able to see, that's an unwinding.
It looks like a lot of fun. I want to do it.
I saw it and was like, God bless. He's obviously pounding those to help with some demons or something.
Or you saw the result of what happened after him drinking a lot and were like, ugh, that doesn't look cool. But like, it looked like a good time to me. So I'm like, well, shit, I want to go have that times 50.
Well, and I think there's some of that, and I think sometimes there are families where, you know, there's some research that suggests that addiction runs in families, and so you need to be aware of those things and have those conversations and be real with your kids about those. Like in my family, there is some history of alcoholism, but my grandma and grandpa I don't know that other than communion wine at church, I don't know that I've ever seen my grandparents drink alcohol. My grandma said to me one time when I was an adult that she doesn't go to wineries and doesn't drink wine because she thinks she's pretty sure she'd get hooked. And she's like, I think she told me she'd be a wino.
Yeah, my nanny was like that about any kind of medication.
She wouldn't even take asprin.
She wouldn't take any painkillers, anything. She had knee replacement, breast cancer, and all she took was Tylenol.
And my parents didn't drink when I was growing up. Like, I vaguely recall maybe once or twice seeing my dad with a beer. I don't remember my mother drinking at all until I was probably maybe a teenager, and then she had one or two. I wasn't a big drinker. My brother, massive drinker. Like, he got in trouble, like, wrecked a car, like, had all kinds of issues. Brooke, you and my brother could have been...
We would have been best friends, yeah. We would have been in the back of the cop car together.
Right, exactly. My youngest sister, you know, not a huge drinker, but will occasionally. But I didn't drink. I hardly drank until I was in my 30s. Like, I drank here and there, but not much. And I don't really know what my deal was. Like, I don't know. Like, I would have maybe a wine cooler here or like, I remember probably being drunk before 27, like 3 times in my life. Like, it wasn't something that I did. But of my mom's siblings, with the grandparents who don't really drink, one of my aunts is a social drinker, not anything heavy or big. I have an uncle who is a serious addict of drugs and alcohol. You know, and another uncle who doesn't really drink at all, and an aunt who they drink occasionally. So it's hard to say. Like, there just doesn't seem to be a cookie cutter, one size fits all answer for this.
Well, because every kid's different. Like,
you have to stay aware, though. That's where you can't tune out. Is you have to watch their experience change, and if it becomes, that's where a parent, like, when they hit that age, you might have been able to be on cruise control from like 10 to 13, but then, you know, once they hit those teenage years, you got to kick that fucking radar back on.
And I wasn't involved in anything. Like, so that's where I think, like, I had idle time, all the time in the world on my hands. So that's huge. It's huge. So I know for a fact my kids are never going to have a fucking minute of free time because they're going to be in every sport and activity they can be in. And that's why we kind of started Gunner so early in jiu-jitsu and baseball, so that he's already used to that kind of regimen schedule, because no, I'm not going to even let him have that much free time.
Well, this comes down for time's sake. I've got to ask a question that I wrote for the first thing to ask tonight on this episode, and I never asked it. What? And it's really a pet peeve, so this is from me. Is fat people. And I know that's going to sound weird, but you see, I'm sure we all know it, where there are people, parents, you know, and I'm not trying to fat shame, but when it comes to children, it's a pet peeve of mine when I see overweight parents that are also letting their kids become overweight, not having them active. They never go outside. That's almost as abusive as other types of abuse, in my opinion. And it's becoming rampant in this country. If you look at the obesity numbers, the numbers around diabetes, because kids obviously can't go outside as much because it's more dangerous, blah, blah, blah.
Well, you can't just let them go outside. But it's a soapbox.
But it goes to a point where I refuse to not let our kids be active and be held hostage.
No, they're going to be active.
And they're going to exercise. I mean, we both exercise and know the value of that.
Yeah.
But so when you see an obese family encouraging an obese child, but then trying to jump in and say, can't believe you don't breastfeed. You're like, how in the fuck are you going to say something?
Well, but I'm going to put that right back on you, Randall. Like, this is the same conversation as that. You can't sit and judge that, because here's what you don't know about those families. You don't walk in those families' shoes. Here's the truth of the matter. Crappy food is cheaper.
Yeah. Of course it is.
And activities are expensive.
Budget. And activities cost a fucking fortune.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is a lot of the time, obesity is attached to poverty or low income, and that's a massive problem. But it's a massive problem because you can't make that blanket judgment. I get why. Like, look, it's not that I don't understand the why behind it, because part of when we make those judgments is because we want to believe that would never be us.
Well, sure, but I want to make it clear. I think, and I would be interested in the numbers. I agree that unhealthy food is cheaper. That's a problem in our country. That's a separate discussion. But I think that you are coddling laziness when you say that if you give a pass to people, because I know my family, my genetics is to be fat. I should be fat. I can be fat. I get fat. If I don't bust my ass in the gym, I'm fat. Like you
Which
saw
is
my
exactly my point.
You saw you
judgment. Though Randall, the reason there's judgment about fat people is because you know it could be you, and that's projection. Like, I don't want that to be me. I'm afraid that's going to be me, and so what I do is I throw it that way. You're not alone. I don't pretend for 2 seconds that you're alone in that. It's sort of human nature, particularly around things that we carry our own shame about. Clearly, being fat is something that you would feel really shameful about.
Oh, I've been fat. I was fat when I met Brooke. She knows me as fat.
He says he was. I don't think he was.
But my point isn't so much even the like if you're, because I come from my high school is an inner city high school, very poor high school. It was a minority driven high school. There weren't very many white kids in my school. I loved my high school. It was the best, but very poor was our demographic. And that's fine. And I didn't see it like, yeah, I hear these numbers. Everybody says that about the food and that it's more of a poor epidemic. But the kids that I knew, they were the best athletes. They were in shape. The people that I see now in my, I guess, middle class life, where the kids are overweight, and I'm talking about the kids, not the parents. I don't want to sound like I'm judging overweight adults because they've made that decision in their life. And this excludes people with glandular problems or health issues, all that. But when a kid is 6 and he weighs 150 pounds and I see the parents giving him $10 to go to the snack bar at the baseball field, it just bothers me. I feel bad for the kid is what I'm saying.
I hear that. And I also know that I don't know the context of that family. I don't know that maybe they come from maybe that child belongs to parents who didn't have anything when they were younger. And so being able to give their kid $10 and to know that their kid is never hungry, maybe that's what that's about. I don't know. I don't pretend to know those circumstances. Sure, do I maybe in my head have concerns about that child's health? Absolutely. I also wouldn't assume that has anything to do with laziness. I also wouldn't assume that maybe what I saw at the ballpark is an everyday thing. I don't know if that child maybe has physical limitations, because a lot of illnesses you can't see. So sort of like the breastfeeding thing, it's super easy to come to snap judgments. And our brain is actually wired that way, by the way, to make the immediate connection to something and to sort of place things in categories and to make judgments. That's natural. To not do that takes intention and careful thought. And I'll go back to the same conversation. Try to be generous with them. Like, I hear what you're saying. And I also know that we don't walk in those people's shoes, and we're not that child, and we're not that child's parents, and we don't know what they live with or what they've been through or any of that. So as much generosity as you can give those people, we should, because I'll go right back to it. I believe most parents are doing the best they can with where they are and what they know in their own situations.
Oh, sure. But I don't want and we may just have to agree to disagree on the point, is that all that being said, even if I were to say, okay, I agree with you, because you make total sense. I agree with a lot of it. But I don't give anyone a pass on just giving in and saying that, oh, no, I can never, I'm just going to be fat. I'm not, like they just, oh, okay, well, then it's because the food is cheaper. Like if you don't put any effort, I think life is tough and it's hard. And I think that people can do more than they think. It
doesn't happen overnight either, is the point. It's not like you just woke up and you were 300 pounds.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, though. I will also say that we live in a society that fat shames, and we live in a society that subsidizes cheap food and makes people fat.
Yeah, that's
So
a huge
serious
problem.
And let's remember, we also live in a capitalistic society. So who's making all the fucking money off of you
Mm-hmm.
when you're fighting the fat shame?
Right.
Ton of people.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a book I will recommend called Health at Every Size, The Surprising Truth About Your Weight. The author is Linda Bacon. So if this triggers something for somebody, because Randall, I'm going to be really honest with you, you may have hurt a lot of people right now.
Oh, I'm absolutely sure that there will be plenty of people that disagree with what I've said, and anyone that knows me, though, and that's majority of people that listen, will know that it's my soapbox, like yours is, whatever yours is.
Well, it's because your insecurity, like that you're...
Well, mine is because I have been fat, and I've been called fat, and I know why I was fat, and
Who called you fat? I'm going to kill him.
Plenty of people. I was a fat kid.
You were not.
But I was an athlete, and then I was a fat adult, and I had to get my ass into shape, and it sucked, and it was hard, and it took 5 years, but it's doable.
Here's why I'm going to recommend that book, even for you, because what that book is supposed to cover is, like, we have an eating disorder epidemic in this, and it is partially around things like this need to fat shame and this need to make being fat this horrible, awful thing that we as a society try to make it. And the truth is our bodies are all just built differently. And sure, I can agree with you that it is probably unhealthy for a 6-year-old to weigh 150 pounds. I understand that. Logically, I agree with you. I also know that there may be reasons behind that, and we might need to find a larger contextual conversation to have for that particular child. And Linda Bacon's book is a lot about body image. And body image is a massive shame trigger for people too, just like motherhood. And so, I mean, and it is highly attached to poverty, especially if you look at like, I'm trying to remember the show. I think it was a long time ago, but there was like a 2020 episode. It sort of ties right in with the opioid epidemic in the Appalachian Mountains, where there's high levels of poverty, high consumption of pop because it's, soda wherever you're at. My husband gives me a hard time. He doesn't understand the pop conversation.
My brother calls it pop.
Yeah, well, because he lives in Montana
Yeah,
now.
he's from Montana, yeah.
We're in that little
It's
section.
Coke or soda here.
Okay. Yeah, Tom's a soda person. So it's like, nobody knows what you're talking about when you say pop. I'm like, okay, everybody here knows what I'm talking about. But like where those things are so readily available, but it's cheap things. And so I think we need to be careful around that. And I'm not saying there's not pieces of what you're saying that I have concerns about too. I also know that there's a larger context to that, and that everybody's body is very different. This idea that we have of like
and metabolism.
Well, and the idea that there's one size that's healthy and one size that's sexy and one.
Well, that's for damn sure not true.
Well, yeah, and I'm not saying anything about sexy, good looking. You can be fat, chubby, thick, and be very good looking. My whole point is about the health. That's when I say fat, I'm talking about health fat, like obese.
That's why I said this book is one you might be interested.
No, I wrote her down. I'm interested in it.
Can I just say how ironic it is that the author's last name is Bacon?
Yes. I love bacon.
Every time we talk about this book, even like at school or with clients, they're like, "Are you kidding me?" I'm like, "No."
I know. Are you serious? This lady's last name is Bacon, and she's writing about. I mean, like.
That's why you'll never forget the book title.
Yeah.
But I think, like, we've done a really good job in this society of creating really fucked up versions of what is healthy and what is acceptable and what is normal. And I think we probably just need to broaden the scope around that. And again, try as much as we can to be generous and understanding we aren't walking in other people's. I'll get off my soapbox.
No, I think we agree on more than we disagree. on that. I know it doesn't sound that way to people, but I agree with everything logically you've said. And I'll even be willing to admit everyone's exposure is different. My circle of people that I've met that I consider an unhealthy weight have had health problems as a result, like that have been diagnosed, diabetes. They've started having circulation issues, or children that have type 1 diabetes at 10, and that sort of thing. So it bothers me in that regard.
Isn't type 1 the hereditary one, not the food related, or is it the other way around?
Well, no, you can have isn't it type 2 that it can start and you don't need insulin, and then if you don't correct it, you end up with type 1? Or am I backwards?
No, because there's one that can, I don't remember which is, there's one that can sort of be hereditary and doesn't have anything
That's
to
type
do
2.
with. I don't
know.
I'm pretty sure.
But there's look, I don't deny that there's heart disease and all kinds of, other issues, diabetes and all kinds of other health related issues that come from unhealthy eating and being overweight. And we know that. Yeah. We also, I also think that the fact that doesn't look the same for everybody.
Sure. But what do you think about the fact that, and I'll give you an example with me, so I can speak to it 100%, no bullshit, is I was 240 pounds when I met Brooke, and I was fat.
I don't remember. You were in really good shape when you met me.
No, when we first started coming here, I'm 6 foot, and so I went to the doctor. This is when I first lived here. My first doctor's appointment living here. I was in good shape when we started dating, and then I got out of shape. There
was a lot of stress related. Okay.
And I went to the doctor, and I was pre-diabetic.
Okay.
And what that means is he's like, yeah, you're out of shape, and it's not looking good. And if you continue, we're going to have to, hypoglycemia is what it was called.
Hyperglycemia or hypo?
No, hypoglycemia.
Hypo means you have low blood sugar.
That's it.
Yeah, okay.
And so he was like, we got to get you back active, blah, blah, blah. So I got in shape over years and working out and changing my lifestyle. Not really my food. It wasn't anything related to food. I just got back in the gym.
No, he's never going to stop drinking Mountain Dew.
Yeah, my diet is dog shit still. But I put in the work, and then I had people, give me shit and say, oh, you take steroids or you short, just because they can't just be like, wow, you busted your ass for 4 years.
Well, that's what everybody jumps to with you.
Yeah, and I'm heavier now and in better shape, and I'm not hypoglycemic, and my numbers are great, and I'm healthy. And
you know what that is, right? You know why people gave you shit about it and had to assume that you were on diabetes.
Because they're jealous.
Same conversation. It's that what you did was put a mirror up in front of people and show them the work they weren't willing to do.
Yeah.
And then I just kind of did the same thing back to them by calling them fat. Yeah, it makes sense.
Look, the mind is a crazy thing.
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
Well, and he did this
I guess I'm still pissed at people is what I'm saying.
Yes.
But I got mad at you. Remember when you did that massive transformation right when I was pregnant? So I'm watching Randall get in the best shape of his life as I'm losing my body day by day. Like I'm getting, how that goes. Yeah. I'm like, oh, and Randall's like, oh, I just can't stop losing weight. I'm like, fuck you.
You're like, you're an ass.
Every day. Yeah, every day I have to loosen my button on my pants or and I'm watching my body just slip away from me.
Yeah. But I mean, if you had to hear how many times people just say, what steroids are you on? How much steroids do you take? I'm like, dude, I drink beer, but I go to the gym every day.
He goes.
I go 6 days a week.
You used to go 7 days a week.
But anyway,
Slacker.
So I'm saying that I get it.
But I think look, I think that's all of this stuff ties into how we parent our children.
Mm-hmm.
Your own experiences as a child and even into young adulthood, very often the stuff we're trying to protect our own children from can be problematic because that's about us, not about them.
No.
So you've got to make sure you're checking your own shit and not putting that stuff on your kid. Like, it's tough, and your kids can push your own buttons, and that nobody hits your triggers like your kids. Nobody can hurt you like your kids. But I think at the same time, like, we really have to check our stuff. And I'm so worried Gunner's going to be a fat kid that I'm going to have him be involved in every single sport may not work for Gunner.
Oh, sure. But
you may have to check that about yourselves and make sure that stuff about Gunner and what's good for him and what he wants to do versus what I need him to do, because I can't have people look at my kid and say he's fat.
Oh, well, my reason for it is because I don't want him to get involved in shenanigans.
And he can.
I know, yeah. But we could do the same thing. Like, the reason I believe that I was a trouble kid is because I wasn't involved in anything, so I'm going to have my kid involved in everything. Well, so we very often do that, and that's the stuff you got to check.
Well, I think the key to that is you can't pick what your kids are into. Once they decide what they like, I don't care if Gunner wants to be a ballerina, if he wants to be a damn what are those ladies that do the leg kicks in New York?
Oh, a Rockette.
A Rockette, or if he wants to be a cheerleader or a football player. I don't care about any of that.
Yeah,
he can do whatever he wants to do.
Something.
But where I will, as a parent, is I will do everything in my power to make sure he's healthy. That's all I care about, that he's healthy. And if that means that I have to deliver newspapers at night to make extra income to get him better food, I would do that.
Well, I also would check that in the sense of make sure that when you're talking about his physical health, you're also checking in on his mental health, because sometimes we put so much pressure around physical appearance and physical health and physical activity that we forget the other piece. And I know you guys are really big on your own mental health care, so I'm not worried about you guys around that. But I also know that for parents, sometimes that physical piece can become all-consuming, and we forget about their mental health. And so that's just as important to make sure we're checking.
Oh, I won't be scared to take him to the. One of my friends calls it the feelings doctor with her daughter.
Oh,
like
that's awesome.
her.
No, there's no. We will both. Neither one of us would hesitate to do that.
I wouldn't hesitate in a heartbeat. I mean, and I know people that have had a lot of anxiety about and just shame from their family about having to take their kids to whatever therapist. And I'm like, don't ever be ashamed of doing that. Like, that's great that you're taking that step with your 5-year-old or whatever. And I mean, yeah.
Well, I want to hit this last question from Dr. Muddington, or he'll kill us, but this will be the last one. Are you cool with that, Rachel?
One more.
Do you have enough time for it?
I do. Yep, you're fine.
All right, this is from Muddy, and I know it's personal to him because I know his situation as a step-parent. As a step-parent, how do you actually scratch that? First,
I'm a step-parent.
I know, but all right, never mind. We'll go with this.
Well, look, I think step-parenting is hard, and so I'm fully open to answering whatever questions I can.
I saw his question.
Well, no, I was going to go with a total different route and ask you something else, but I'll wait till this is over. As a step-parent, how do you best handle the "you're not my dad or mom"? And Brooke can speak to that. She's done fantastic with it. She's never had it.
I can't speak to that, though, because Griffin's never said that to me.
Because you know why? You set the stage the first time you met him. I remember when he was young and he started coming here.
I never tried to be his mom.
No, we had the talk with him that you're Brooke, whatever's comfortable for him to call you, whether it's Brooke, Miss Brooke, Brookeyton.
He's got a mom, and she's the majority of his life is his mom. So I mean, like, I've never tried to replace his mom in any way. I'm his stepmom, and I'm.
So you've never had to hear the words come out of his mouth like some kids, I'm sure, do, where they say, "You're not my mom."
Well, yeah, because I'm also not with him all the time.
That's a key piece. So here's where a lot of times stepdads really get put in this spot.
Yes.
Very often, not all the time, but a lot of the time, moms are...
Well, mom gets custody.
Mom will get
primary
physical custody. And even some parents who... So, like, my kids, for a while, they were, like, 10 days with me, 4 days with their dad. So, like, they would get a long weekend with their dad every other week. But so stepdads really become... And even... So, my 20-year-old son, if you ask him, there's his dad, and then there's his parents, which is Tom and I.
Aww.
Like, they don't call him dad. He's Tom.
Yeah.
You know, it's mom and Tom, and that's who we are. But stepdads end up very often being in this very strange place.
Yeah. A lot more
and
pressure.
Stepmoms do too in different aspects. And stepmoms who have more time with their stepkids have some of that too. You have to tread lightly, and you have to remember, here's the truth of the matter. They're right. You're not their parent.
Right.
No, yeah, you're right.
And to acknowledge that. You get to say, you're right. I'm not your parent. And some of how we in my family have negotiated around some of this is that Tom very often follows my lead. You know, he backs me up around things, which doesn't always go well. You know, the kids don't always like him for it. But, you know, it's backing me up, and it's really stepping back around authority instead of sort of stepping in and being like, well, I need to be the head of this household, or I need to, you know, I need to assert some authority. It's very much stepping back and developing a relationship with those kids that's not a parent, necessarily a I'm your dad relationship, but it doesn't mean you're not a parental figure. But you can't be a parental figure if you don't have the relationship first.
Boom.
So you have to start that with a friendship, and you have to start that with a who are we together in relationship, so that we can then figure out how I can be an adult who loves you, who cares about you, and who can have some influence.
Yeah, I feel like I just accidentally did that with Griffin. I mean, I didn't have any like.
No, it's been seamlessly wonderful.
It really has been.
Lucky.
I mean, and I adore that kid. I love him so much, but like but it's not.
How old was he when you came around?
He was 7 when he started coming here.
That's a little different too. It's a little easier sometimes when they're younger. It gets a little more touchy when kids are teenagers.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'm sure of it. That makes total sense.
Yeah.
Teenagers can be dicks.
So McLaren was super accepting of was 9.
Yeah.
And then she went through a little while of, no, I don't really I know you're here, but that's all that we're talking is that you're here. Like, you exist. And
I don't think Griffin's ever gone through that.
Knock on wood.
I don't think he. I'm not. I mean, he's 13 now. I mean, I think if he was going to.
Well, you had a really nice chunk of time before he got to that place to develop what that relationship was going to look like and how you guys were going to maneuver that. And I think some of your attitude about I don't need to be your mom. I'm just another person who loves you. That works, and it can go a long way when times get a little touchy with teenagers. So, as much of a relationship as you can develop, awesome. I would also say, so this is the thing I preached to Tom from almost day one, was you have to play the long game. This is not about individual battles.
Yes.
This is about, do they like me today? Do they hate me tomorrow? You have to play the long game.
Yes.
Are you listening, Dr. Muddington? The long game.
Well, and I think that right there, Rachel, is more of like a man-woman mentality, almost. Because I have seen that from the beginning, almost. Because I'm like, I'm here forever. So I was in no rush to get to an end goal with a relationship with him. Like, I knew that this kid's going to be in my life for the rest of my life.
Right.
And
how do I want to play that?
Right. So I knew and he's a fantastic, sweet, wonderful kid. So he made it pretty easy, but
yeah.
No, you have a great point, because if I'm honest, and I try to always be honest, is if the shoe was reversed,
you would have
I would be trying to make that kid love me on day one. You're going to love me. Let's love each other. Tell me your secrets. I'm going to tell you mine. We love each other, right?
And where it really gets into trouble, where step parents have to really be careful, is it can't ever be the competition of we need them to be happier at our house than they are at their other house.
No. I want him to be happy at home with his mom because he's there most of the time, and I want him to be happy here. It's never. Yeah, no, where Randall's going that's exactly how I'm just good thing I didn't have kids before.
No, I mean, I think that's a guy thing, and so I can kind of see where Muddington is coming from.
Yeah, you just got to be
where
patient.
Maybe he's thinking like I would be thinking, and maybe we should have a little more of a woman shift.
And here's the thing. There's some conversations about, like, there are some conversations out online that you can sort of read up a little bit on step parenting, but it's not a greatly charted course. And it truly is about the relationships you develop, because I know people who have incredible relationships with step parents. And, like, I know stepdads and dads who've walked daughters down the aisle. Like, I know, like, there are really great stories about amazing step parents. And some of that has to do with how accepting the other parent is. Like,
oh, that's been evolving. Yeah. That's gotten better.
Part of how you develop a solid relationship with your stepkid is to be really, really respectful of their relationships with their parents.
Well, and that's been from, regardless of how Randall and I's relationship has been with his mom, which is, it's great now, not always from the beginning. However,
he never knew that.
He never knew. Like, his mom has always been, like, the one thing I've always said from the jump, even when our relationship was rocky, like, between me and her, was that she never would say anything bad about me to him. She, and
vice versa.
And so, like, he would come here, so he would never, because I know, I mean, that's just the worst that you can do, in my opinion.
I'll give you an example, and fair or unfair, I'm going to throw my family's dirty laundry out into the world. Just so you know that even therapists have dirty laundry to throw out into the world. We are just people, after all.
Quit calling people fat, Rachel.
That was you, Randall.
Nope, that was you.
So my kids had a really hard time when their dad started dating. There was a while where they weren't even allowed to mention me in the house.
What?
My son actually at one point
That's
said,
ridiculous.
He goes, it's like you're like Voldemort from Harry Potter.
What?
You're like she who should not be named.
But how funny of your kid to,
I almost spit my beer out.
I just want to give your son a big hug, though, for making it so, like, aw.
I mean, it's like, and it was.
How did you not go over there and just cut that bitch, though, is what I want to know.
Yeah, well, all I'm going to say about that is that they're getting divorced now. So I'll just sit here and bite my tongue.
Na boo boo.
That's all you've got to say.
I will zip it from there.
Yeah.
But that particular piece is really hard. And when Tom first came around, there was a while where my ex-husband, like, we had a hard time with Mason for a little bit, and my ex-husband came to the house, was not always great to me, but we could tolerate that situation. Like, he was able, I said, look, Mason's really having a bad day. I think he needs to, can you come get him? And he was like, yeah, I can come get him. And we were able to do that for a while. And then when he started dating this other woman, there were big problems in that was not okay. She had decided that I was Satan.
What a dipshit for
Sounds
marrying
like
her.
She's insecure.
So he went ahead and married her because he couldn't even go pick up his kids without trouble. Oh, he's smart.
Yeah. So we had lots of issues. And look, my situation when I left was abusive, and we had lots of other stuff. But as a step parent, that is how you ensure that you never have a relationship with your stepkids. Like, my kids,
it's to talk shit about their parent. Yeah. I mean, what the hell are you thinking?
Right. You can't do that. And you have to develop a relationship with that child, not as a parental unit first.
Exactly.
That has to be separate. Like, that has to come along later.
That has to come along kind of naturally.
And it has, like, and you have to play the long game. Like, if you talk to, so Mason's 20 now, and like, I think it was this Father's Day or last Father's Day, he wrote this incredibly long post about how much he loves Tom and how grateful he is and all of those things.
Sweet.
And I looked at Tom and I was like, when I said we're playing the long game, this is what.
Boom.
Yeah.
This is what I meant.
Victory.
I know it's taken a long time. I'm so sorry. It was really bad for a long time. But if you're the step parent, hang in there.
I know. Yeah. Well, and it's like, I can't even, like, I mean, like, I can count on one hand how many times, like, me and Griffin have said I love you, because I don't want to, like, of course I love him, and I feel like he knows I love him, but I I can't bring myself to like smother him with it because I feel like I'd be forcing myself down his throat. You know what I mean? Like,
Tom does that to McLaren on a regular basis. He's like, give me a hug. She's like, no, oh my God, go away.
Oh, I do that to him all the time. Like, I'm like, hug. I need a hug before you leave. Okay, bye. But like, I mean, it's, you know, for some reason, like, I mean, you know, Griffin said, I love you, like in a Mother's Day card, like really, like, you know, exactly
how your relationship works. And I think that is to go at a kid's pace, step back where you can and where you need to. And I don't pretend that that's easy. Like, I don't envy step parents their role. It is a tough spot to be in. It is.
Sometimes I'm like, does he know that I love him? Like, sometimes I feel like I'm like, I feel like I'm cold or something because I'm not telling it. But then I'm like, you know, Randall has to reel me in.
Or all you have to do is go back and look at some of the, you know, I always look at the pictures that, like the, Brooke and the kids always make me cards for like birthday and Father's Day because I prefer those. They know I like them. Handmade ones are better. And I go back and look. They're all on my bulletin board in my office at work.
Aww.
And you go back and look at those and, you know, when he was 9 or 8. And there's, you know, pictures of him and Brooke and the dogs and holding hands. Like, that tells you exactly where he's at.
Yeah.
That's all you need to know. You know, like that proof right there. That's forever.
And be able to recognize the little wins. The days that you didn't fight, or the days that you were able to share a moment. Like, lock in on those, because that's what'll get you through the times that aren't so tough. And at the end of the day, remember, you're not their parent. And so they're not wrong when they say, you're not my mom, you're not my dad. You're not.
Yeah.
You're another adult who loves them. You might be a parental figure, but I don't know. It's, in a way, that's a piece you have to earn, and that may just take longer than you want, and you will need an endless well of patience.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's one of those where the truth might sting, but it is what it is.
And you have to be honest about that. Like, you're right, I'm not. But what I am is I'm a person who's worried about you. I'm a person who loves your mom and is worried about how this stuff with you and me is impacting her. Because the last thing that I'd want is for stuff with us to hurt your mom. And I think maybe we can get on the same page around it. Like, there's lots of ins if you can find them. You just have to get to know the kid well enough to be able to do that.
Boom. Well, there you go, Dr. Muddington.
I'll get a DM tomorrow that'll be like, I need further explanation.
I know.
Oh yeah, well, you know him. He'll dive bomb you on Twitter without hesitation.
Maybe he'll have a specific scenario. I thought isn't his stepson like young?
I don't know.
I thought he was like 7 or 8.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Well, where are we at? We went, what, 2 hours?
Yeah, we're 2 hours.
Hey,
We can't ever get below this 2 hour mark.
I know.
hey, better than 2.5 though, or 3. I think we knocked some off.
We got halfway through our questions.
Yeah.
More questions. I'm willing, if we need to, between now and the next couple of weeks, if you want to send them to me, I'm happy to see if there's any that are able to be answered via tweet. Okay. Or at least maybe if you want me to do that, because
I've got like 5. I think we got 5 or 6 left that we can send you. That actually would be excellent tweets.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. And then what do we want to promote next episode as the title? Because these questions trickled in slowly. I liked how that worked because we had questions come in, a few a day.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. Are there any of the questions that are remaining that give us any good clues into other topics?
Yes, I've got one about big black cocks. Not joking.
Again, why is that always a conversation?
That is.
I don't know.
Do we need to do a sex episode? Like, do we need to do?
I feel like all of our other episodes were sex episodes.
I say we do, because this one is about porn. Can we do a whole episode just about porn?
Oh. Yeah.
Everybody get your lube ready.
I mean, it might be a fancy one. I'm down to try it if you are.
You'll get me a little bit on a soapbox around this, because I am one of the mental health practitioners who does not buy into the sex addiction conversation, there's a new study out in a new book that just released information that porn only leads to sexual dissatisfaction if you are highly religious.
Well, I also don't agree with sex addiction. I've never bought into that being a real thing. So
I don't either. Yeah.
So, but like we can talk about porn and all kinds. So yeah, I suppose. Do we want to specifically talk about porn and like in relationships?
Yeah. I think that's how we'll open it up, because that's what this question is around. We won't answer it now, but it's around a guy that found his wife's history, and she wasn't putting out for him. She said her sex drive was gone, and then he found her history, and it's all big black cocks.
That was not in our parenting questions, or was it?
Yeah, because she said that since they had kids, her sex drive was gone.
Oh. Okay.
So we'll definitely cover that one next time around.
Yep.
And yeah, we can talk about porn. And yeah, if anybody's got specific questions on that one, I think it's particularly a hot topic now. Maybe I'll even get a hold of that new book and see if I can get some more good of the newer research that's out. I'll see what I can pull up. So yeah. We can cover that.
Sweet.
Right,
I like it. I think we give it a go and see.
Porn in relationships. That would be August 20th.
Perfect. And so, yeah, send me those other questions, or go ahead if you want to tweet them out from your account and I can answer through that way. Like whatever seems like the better option, we can do that.
I think it looks better. I like when you send a tweet. I think they're more effective when you send a tweet and then like tag us in it. It just looks cooler. And it makes me feel like we're a bigger deal. So I'll send them to you in advance, and then you can make us look fancy.
What I might do is I might stretch them out over the next, week or so.
Yeah.
So, A, people feel like we get to those questions. B, it keeps the Twitter feeds up and lively. Keeps our Twitter feeds connected.
Yeah.
But those people don't feel like we're forgetting their questions when we talk too long.
Beautiful. Awesome.
All right. Thanks, guys. It was fun.
Take it easy, and we'll talk to you soon.
We'll talk to you.
Bye.
All right.
My ass cheeks are sweaty.
That's why I started putting a pillow on. Our kitchen table is like a high top with some stools. So I started putting one of our pillows from the couch on my stool to sit on. It really helps. You should try.
I got greasy cheeks.
Yeah, because it makes your butt, if you sit on one of these stools for a long time, it makes your butt sweaty.
Yeah. Boy, Rachel didn't like me calling people fatties.
Well, it's not nice.
Yeah, I mean, I
you are very aggressive about that. I mean, and we disagree, and that's fine. It is.
I don't have a problem with. I think it's like when she was saying the step parents. The truth hurts. Sometimes the truth hurts.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I don't disagree with you, but I'm not as passionate. I mean, I am passionate about it, but not necessarily to the degree.
Just say it. You're not a dick.
I'm not as much of an asshole about it as you are.
No, it's definitely one of my pet peeves, though.
For sure.
And I got to make it clear, you can be fat and sexy.
Absolutely. There's plenty of fat, sexy people.
Plenty of dickies. Mm-hmm. Believe me.
It gave me all the warm and fuzzies, the whole step-parent conversation, because I just love Griffin so much.
No, it was a great... I enjoyed the shit out of this show. It was fun as shit. Mm-hmm. And it was all question-driven by the people and me likey.
Mm-hmm. And I've been staring at Owlette's face this whole time.
Yeah.
Gunner's PJ Masks dolls are on the table, and Owlette's been staring me right in the eye this whole time.
Well, what I think we should do is tomorrow night record another little segment on Big Brother and patch them together.
Because people want us to release this one tonight. So.
Well, they can suck my dick. Fat fucks.
Why don't we just skip the Big Brother talk this week, or
do
one
Friday?
Plenty
long.
Look, we don't have anybody scheduled for this Friday. Why don't we just do one this Friday?
Fine with me.
There you go.
Great thing.
Compromise. We'll talk this Friday about Big Brother.
John, quit licking me and farting on me.
John is ready to go to fucking bed.
He's been shitting on me for the last 30 minutes.
He's come over and said hi to me and not shit in my mouth.
He's
But he's got,
gassy.
every time he goes over to you, he farts, which is beautiful. Thank you, John. I love you, Din Din.
Well, all right, folks. Well, we're going to get the fuck out of here
Yes, sir.
and suck our own dicks.
Okay, bye.
Fuck yourselves.
Oh, wow. Bye.